Hey CineFixers, it's Mark here, and this is Casey.
That's me. I know what you're thinking. Don't think that. It's gonna be okay.
So last night, Casey and I went and saw The Death of Superman Lives. We went to the world premiere of it at the Egyptian Theater. Death of Superman Lives is about the failed attempt during the 90s to make a Superman movie, moving through a lot of filmmakers, and the documentary is rad.
Yeah.
It is just a beautiful glimpse into the pre-production process, if you're interested in that. It's a glimpse into fame, like really A-list directors' lives and how they develop these huge studio films while also balancing out their artistic integrity. It follows Tim Burton a lot through this because he was attached to it.
Because it's not just a bunch of talking heads explaining this plot for this film that was never made and like, oh, he said this and she did that. That's not all it is. They have all this concept art that they put in there, and they'll animate it and they'll move it around and stuff. It looks really gorgeous. Yeah. They do all this really fun stuff with the interviews, with animations over it. So you actually get a glimpse of this film that was never made.
Tim Burton at his prime doing some artsy fartsy crap with Superman, and it ended up being this crazy fairy tale starring Nick Cage. And you get to see them actually developing the character of Clark Kent, developing the character of Superman. And it was like, it wasn't going to be a Superman movie that would, you know, define the character at all, but it was going to be this weird, bizarre, like, Superman had a teddy bear robot, I guess?
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite parts about the film is that you get to see Nicolas Cage being the great actor he is, not some meme joke like a lot of the, the newer generation feels that he is. This guy was freaking awesome.
Yeah, you get reminded why he's won an Oscar.
Now, and one thing that I was disappointed in going into it was that they don't have an interview with Nicolas Cage talking about it. I was really hoping for something like that. You don't get that. But there's 45 minutes that they found of footage of all this stuff, and it's choice stuff. It's so good. It's like Nicolas Cage looks like Marlon Brando sitting there with this little cape on going, "This cape is like a blanket for a baby." I mean, it's so good.
So The Death of Superman Lives that we saw wasn't a complete movie. The version of the movie we saw was unfinished. So I can't necessarily talk directly about the polish of the movie. It's not going to be the most mind-blowing documentary for structure or for quality, but the content is king here. And it's a geeky, nerdy movie for geeky nerds.
But I kind of hope they don't polish it too much. Because, it is a little disjointed. You know, here and there, it's like, the footage looks really clean and pretty here. But then in this interview, it's this crappy little camcorder and a Ramada Inn. But it's sort of self-reflexive of what John Schnepp was going through in making this film. You know, 1 minute they're crowdfunded and got, celebrities or whatever to fund them. And so they get to do all this stuff, but then they're broke, and so they got to just manage, and then they're back. They have more money, and they can do this and it. And it also kind of reflects the whole process of Superman Lives.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the most chaotic development I've ever seen.
John Peters, he's the guy in charge. He's the man driving the ship of Superman Lives. And he's kind of the reason it got stuck in development hell. This man claims to have been in 500 street fights. He went to Harvard before he was a hairdresser, and he's tasted other men's blood. He would regularly put these artists, these concept artists, into headlocks and
for fun,
just attack
as one
them.
does. I was having a love affair with John Peters' crazy ideas, and like the first one that he pitches you at the beginning of the film, you're like, well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. But then you think that for every single idea he has from that point on. He's like a human Jenga of insanity.
The other side of it is then you get to see his crazy idea, his giant spider, and then you see how Kevin Smith handles that idea of a giant spider, and then see how Tim Burton actually takes that idea, applies it to Brainiac, and comes up with one of the most beautiful, creepy versions of Brainiac I've ever seen. The Death of Superman Lives, the documentary is fantastic, but what would have been a national treasure, pun intended, is Superman Lives. It was gonna be so, whether it was good or bad or tragic, it would have been something for the ages to just hold on to. And the only way we're ever going to experience it is through this one documentary, and it's so beautiful. If you've seen it, let us know in the comments below. If you've seen the photos and whatever you think about the whole process of Superman Lives and all the rumors, let us know, and like and follow. should redo that wrap up. Huh?
Did you get lost?